Soviet pilot and cosmonaut Vladimir Mikhailovich Komarov made history twice. He became the first human to journey into space twice, and, tragically, the first to die during a space mission. What led to this disaster? And did Komarov foresee his own fate? Komarov's first flight took place on October 12, 1964, aboard Voskhod-1, the world's first multi-person spacecraft. He commanded the three-man crew alongside engineer Konstantin Feotestov and physician Boris Yegorov. They spent just over 24 hours in orbit, completing 16 full revolutions around Earth. The mission was groundbreaking. It was the first flight with a three-person crew, the first to include a civilian specialist, and the first to use a soft landing system. For this achievement, Komarov was named Hero of the Soviet Union and awarded the Order of Lenin and the Gold Star Medal. Just days later, on October 15th, he was officially recognized as a Class 3 cosmonaut. By January 1965, he had become a cosmonaut instructor, preparing others for the rigors of spaceflight. By the mid-1960s, the Soviet Union was racing to maintain its edge in space against the United States. The Soyuz program, launched in 1962 under the leadership of Sergei Korolev, aimed to develop a next-generation spacecraft capable of complex missions like docking, orbital maneuvers, and eventually lunar landings. But early test flights were plagued with critical failures. The first three unmanned missions ended in disappointment. Cosmos 133, launched in November 1966, failed due to a control system malfunction and had to be destroyed in orbit. Cosmos 134 never launched. Its rocket exploded on the pad, killing 3 technicians. Cosmos 140, flown in February 1967, suffered serious damage during re-entry due to a failed heat shield. The spacecraft crashed into the Aral Sea. Engineers retrieved the wreckage and the charred mannequin on board. Despite these setbacks and over 200 unresolved issues in the spacecraft design, officials pushed forward with a manned flight. Internal pressure to achieve a major victory before the 50th anniversary of the October Revolution intensified decision-making. Vasily Meshin, who succeeded Korolev after his sudden death in 1966, insisted the mission move forward. Komarov's assignment to Soyuz 1 came with enormous prestige, but also risk. Many insiders voiced concerns that the spacecraft wasn't ready. Behind closed doors, engineers feared a disaster. Komarov reportedly confided to colleagues that he believed he would not survive the mission. His backup for the flight? None other than Yuri Gagarin. Both men were present at a launch site, and if Komarov had been medically disqualified, Gagarin would have flown instead. Some accounts suggest that Gagarin even tried to prevent the flight, submitting a letter to party officials warning of the spacecraft's unprepared state, but his concerns went unheeded. On April 23, 1967, Soyuz 1 lifted off from Baikonur Cosmodrome. At first, ground control received no data. Telemetry was spotty. Then came the reports. One of the 2 solar panels had failed to deploy, limiting power supply. This malfunction rendered half of the spacecraft's systems unusable, including stabilization and life support backups. Orientation systems failed. Antennas malfunctioned. Komarov had to manually stabilize the spacecraft, which was spinning uncontrollably at one point. He reported mounting issues in terse communications. "I'm feeling fine, but the ship is behaving badly." Meanwhile, back on Earth, ground teams worked frantically to plan a re-entry. Komarov was now flying blind. He had no access to solar or stellar navigation and minimal power to run gyroscopes. They hoped to bring him down manually on the 19th orbit. Komarov's calm and professional demeanor under pressure astounded even veteran controllers. He had to orient the spacecraft using crude methods, timing his burn using ground-based calculations and his own gut instinct. Against the odds, he managed to guide Soyuz 1 into a re-entry trajectory. At mission control, anxiety peaked. The descent capsule separated successfully. The projected landing site was near Orsk, in the southern Urals. But then, silence. Hours passed with no word. Rescue helicopters eventually located the crash site. The descent module had slammed into the ground at around 50 meters per second. The main parachute had failed to deploy. The reserve chute had become entangled. The capsule had buried itself half a meter into the ground and ignited. The fire was fueled by leaking hydrogen peroxide, a component of the attitude control system. When recovery teams arrived, they found a gruesome scene. The capsule was charred beyond recognition. Inside, Komarov's remains were barely distinguishable. The impact and fire had obliterated the interior. The official investigation blamed a deformed parachute container, supposedly damaged by pressure fluctuations. But factory engineers conducted a covert test and discovered a different problem. The parachute mechanism required more force to activate than the weight of the capsule could generate. Simply put, it was a design flaw. Additional theories suggested that improper curing of the spacecraft's thermal shielding released vapors that adhered to the inside of the parachute compartment, effectively gluing it shut. Reports indicate the capsules were rushed through production, sometimes skipping essential quality checks. Boris Chertok, one of the leading spacecraft designers, later admitted, "We pushed the Soyuz into space too early. It wasn't ready. Komarov paid the price." Following Komarov's death, an internal shakeup occurred in the Soviet space program. Several officials were reprimanded, though none faced criminal charges. The public was told little about the true causes of the disaster. On April 25th, Komarov was buried with full honors. His ashes were placed in the Kremlin Wall necropolis. Initially, his wife received a death certificate stating that he had died of extensive burns in Sholkovo, a town outside Moscow. Furious, she showed the document to Gagarin, demanding, "Who will believe this? He died in space." Thanks to Gagarin's intervention, a corrected certificate was issued. Komarov had died during the return of Soyuz 1. His family received an apartment in Moscow, and he was posthumously awarded a second Gold Star. Years later, secret files revealed that Komarov's warnings had been documented. Transcripts showed his calm acceptance of his fate. As the spacecraft descended, he reportedly told ground control, "This is how it ends. I did my duty. Tell my wife I love her." The tragedy of Soyuz 1 deeply affected the Soviet space community. It led to a temporary suspension of manned flights and a redesign of the Soyuz series. The next manned Soyuz flight wouldn't occur until 1969. Despite the early failures, the Soyuz became the most flown and reliable crewed spacecraft in history. It ferried cosmonauts to space for decades and remains in service today, continuing the legacy both technical and human of pioneers like Komarov. Vladimir Komarov's sacrifice serves as a lasting reminder. Space exploration is never without risk. His story is one of courage, pressure, loss, and ultimately, the price paid in the name of progress. Behind every milestone in the space race stood individuals who gave everything. And among them, Vladimir Komarov stands forever as a symbol of quiet bravery in the face of certain doom, a name history must never forget.
Please don't forget to subscribe or write a comment and put a bell so as not to miss new videos. Thanks for watching.